Hello, my name is Greg Wallace. I'm the Senior Trade Commissioner with the Australian Trade Commission. And the Australian Trade Commission is the organisation which promotes Australia's trade and investment with other countries. So here we are in Thailand, and particularly here we have a number of sectors that are interesting to us, and one of them is the promotion of Australia's education internationally, and in this case, of course, promoting Australia's education to Thais who are looking to go to study in Australia. I think there's a number of reasons why Australia is an attractive destination for international students, and in this case particularly Thai students. First of all, they recognise that they're going to get a very good qualification by studying in Australia, and whether that is at primary school or secondary school or graduate or postgraduate level. It's interesting that my son actually is at boarding school in Australia, and in his dormitory there are 2 Thai kids, and that really surprised me, but it just illustrates that there's opportunities across a whole range of educational levels. There's also a very big pool of Thai students in Australia. About 20,000 students are enrolled in Australia, and so that creates a word of mouth effect, a flow-on effect, that those people have had a good experience, they've come back to Thailand and they've spoken about that to their peers, so that generates a lot of enthusiasm to go to Australia. So, and the other thing which is very important is you've got a very safe and welcoming environment for foreigners in Australia. We are a country of migrants. We have about 25% of our population was born overseas. We're used to welcoming visitors to Australia. So, we like to welcome foreign students. So they find that a very safe and welcoming environment. So when you put together the combination of the qualification they'll receive in an environment that's very enjoyable and a lot of fun and very welcoming, I think that creates a very attractive environment for students. The areas of study that Australia has been recognised as excelling in have been in things like science and technology and literature. We have 12 Nobel laureates in those fields in Australia, and Australia is a very innovative country. Australians have been responsible for inventing a number of things, such as the black box fight recorder, the heart pacemaker, the bionic ear, even Google Maps. So we're recognised as a country of innovators. So those are actually things that, at a high level, let's say, Australia has been very good at. At a more practical level, in actual fact, the most popular courses are courses in management and commerce, because those are things that I guess for Thais are recognised as being very valuable, and particularly at a postgraduate level, to come back and apply here in Thailand. The Australian government has a scholarship scheme called the Endeavour Scholarships, and this is a program which is open to students who want to study at a variety of, or at different levels, let's say, of institutions in Australia, from vocational training up to postgraduate training to postdoctorate training, and also for executive development. So it's a very comprehensive program because it provides opportunities, as I said, across that range of different types of study. In 2011, I think there were 16 Thai students who received scholarships under that program, but it's not a capped program. In other words, there's no quotas, so more Thai students could apply and could be accepted into that program. The ESOS program is a very important government program that the Australian government conducts in conjunction with international students, because what it provides is a very important level of security for the student, in particular when they come to study in Australia. What it means is that if a student comes to study in Australia and the course that they're doing is not available, or the institution that they intended to study at and have paid for their course at goes broke, for example, then they are either transferred into another course, a similar course, or they can receive a refund for the money that they paid for the course that's no longer available at the institution that no longer exists, if that happens. And this is the most comprehensive protection scheme that's available to students at any country in the world. So we think that's a very important thing for students to consider when they think about where they want to go and study, We don't like to think about the worst happening, but if it does happen, we have a very good protection scheme in place for those students. Australia is recognised as being a very safe and welcoming country for foreigners, for students, for migrants. We are ranked second in the what's called the Human Development Index, which is an index which measures a whole lot of lifestyle factors, and so that's a recognition that Australia is a very well-developed and safe country. We also have 5 of our institutions, I believe, which are ranked in the top 30 of the best places for students to study overseas. Sorry, 5 cities. So 5 of the top cities in the world for students to study in are Australia's cities. And that also takes into account a whole range of factors, including safety and welfare and the environment. So I think it's on very objective measures, we can see that Australia is recognised as being a very, very safe and welcoming destination for students. Yeah, the cost of living in Australia will vary quite a lot depending on the city that you're living in and your individual preferences for the lifestyle, of course. But as a guide, we provide information about the cost of living will be something like about 1,800 Australian dollars per month for a student to live in Australia. And the cost of day-to-day items, just to give you some idea, it's something like about $1 to $2 to buy a newspaper and perhaps $2 to $3 to buy a soft drink. So that gives you just of some very simple day-to-day things, a bit of an idea of what the costs are. So if a Thai student wishes to study in Australia, the first thing to determine will be what is the length of the course, because then the type of visa they would get would vary. If the course is longer than 3 months, they would need to apply for a student visa. If it's less than that, they can come on a regular visitor visa. So let's assume that it's a longer course. Then the student would need to demonstrate that they're coming here to Australia for a genuine reason. In other words, it must be demonstrated that they're coming here to do this course of study. They would need to demonstrate that they have the financial capability to look after themselves during that period of study. They would need to be able to demonstrate that they have passed the health requirement to obtain the visa, and they would need to demonstrate that they have English language proficiency. They're the 4 things that you will need to demonstrate, and then you go through the process of applying for that visa. So to make sure that a student passes their requirements for the English proficiency, first of all, if they're coming to do an English language course, I guess it makes sense. They don't need to do an English language proficiency test. That's what they're coming for Australia to do, to learn English. But if they're going for, let's say, a higher education course at a university, then that requirement will depend upon the university's own tests that they would provide. So that could vary across institutions. So they would just need to check with each institution that they're interested in what that requirement would be and whether they're likely to be able to meet that English proficiency test. Yes, for a student visa, a Thai will need to pass a medical examination. There are a number of designated places where the medical test can be taken, which will meet the requirements of the Australian government, so that forms part of their application. So that, yes, that is something that Thai students need to consider as part of their application process.